What brings you here to New York for Climate Week?
Well, thank you very much. So New York Climate Week has actually become quite an effective place to meet people from all around the world that have a common interest in climate. And of course, this morning it was very interesting to see there was a ratification ceremony at the United Nations headquarters. And it was a very important moment because COP21, the big climate agreement, basically asked for a big decarbonization and some kind of a transition of our energy systems. And today, this morning at the UN, it was very clear that we need more momentum. We will get the agreement ratified very soon. We're only missing a few more countries. But really, I think here it's now to move from talk to action. And this is a very good place to meet people to take this forward.
And as an oil company, how can you help with that action? I mean, as a company that depends on selling fossil fuels and might be seen as part of the problem, how can you be part of the solution?
Well, energy-related emissions actually contribute three quarters of man-made emissions. So the energy sector has a very important role and responsibility to help with the shift of our energy systems. Of course, as an oil and gas producer, for us it's very important to make sure that we reduce our emissions, but also to invest in a low-emission future. And in Statoil, for instance, we are doing this already in our own operations, so we are reducing emissions very fast. We had a commitment of reducing emissions by 800,000 tons by 2020, but we actually reached that target 4 years early. So we upped our target by 50% to 1.2 million tons. Otherwise, we also have investments in renewable energy, which is a growth area for us. So I would say for an oil and gas producer, this is a very important place to be, and also the policy developments are very important to us. So we're here to listen and to collaborate and find new partners to really accelerate the speed of change that's needed.
And operational efficiencies are, of course, very welcome, but the big impact that oil has is when it's sold to the consumer and they put it in their car and they burn it. And I mean, the Paris Agreement goals of 2 degrees or even 1.5 degrees, that means burning less oil, doesn't it? And how do you make sure at Statoil that, how does that affect your investments in terms of, for example, drilling in the Arctic or more expensive projects? Is that changing the way you invest?
Well, I think the first to point, everybody in the world actually carries some responsibility in reducing emissions for the future. So it's the consumer, but it's also businesses like ours, but also government need to play their role. So everybody has the role to play. Now at Statoil, we have a very clear commitment towards action on climate, and we have a strategy around this, and it really is about reducing emissions effectively and also working with partnerships, to come up with new technology to reduce emissions and so on. And I think what's very interesting now in the whole sector is that this has become more of a strategic issue, and in Statoil we're very confident about our way forward and how we embrace the issue around climate.
I mean, is there any room for oil drilled in the Arctic in a 2-degree world?
Well, the Arctic is actually, there are different types of Arctic, and in Statoil we have a long history actually of operating in the Northern Hemisphere. Now, the issue about the Arctic is not necessarily a climate issue, it's also about cost and accessibility and so on. So I don't think the Arctic and climate is a slightly different topic or a separate topic.
Okay, and what about flaring of in the oil and gas industry? Because the industry has made many promises to end routine flaring, but it seems to be quite difficult. What are the challenges there? Why is it so difficult to end that practice?
So routine flaring is a very important practice that we need to eliminate, and many leading companies in the oil and gas sector have actually committed to go to zero routine flaring by 2030. And this is a very important move. Several governments are also in support of this aim. There are many challenges, however, and it could be maybe lack of infrastructure or lack of access to markets. They're complex issues, but here again it's very important that we work in partnership with government, with various companies, and learn from each other. And there's some very, I think, effective activities around this coordinated by the World Bank that we also participate in.
And is there anything that you would like to see from governments or institutions like the World Bank that would help you as a company to contribute to the climate effort?
First of all, I would say carbon pricing is a very important area where the World Bank has actually really fostered a really nice coalition of government and business to drive that movement forward. So that's a very welcome activity, and it would be good to see more of that type of sort of policy development, harmonized policies across the world, so that we have a level playing field and that can really incentivize sort of a transformation into low emission future.